Maximize Your Influence is your podcast for the latest persuasion, sales, and negotiation techniques. Our mission is to help you influence on command, anyone, anytime, anywhere. Your host is the author of Persuasion IQ, Laws of Charisma, and the best-selling book, Maximum Influence. Now, your host, Kurt Mortensen.
All right, welcome back to Maximize Your Influence. Kurt Mortensen here. This is the place where we learn about how to persuade, motivate, influence. And today we're going to talk about self-persuasion. Of course, the things we should have learned in school. Good news today, we have a special guest, Dre Baldwin. Dre Baldwin is the CEO and founder of Work on Your Game, Inc. He's given 4 TED Talks, authored 35 books. And Dre, I don't know how you did that. I'm on number 6, but that's impressive. Congratulations on that. He's also known as Dre All Day. He's a 9-year professional athlete, and he helps coach people to experience unparalleled success through mindset and motivation. Excited to have him. Dre, welcome.
Kurt, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Good to have you here. Glad to have you here. So let's start off with the question we ask all our guests. Dre, what is the worst vegetable on the planet? If you could delete one, what would it be?
The worst vegetable?
Yeah.
I actually like vegetables in general. The worst one, the one that I like eating the least, I would say I'll give you 2. So asparagus is not that bad, but the meal delivery service that I use, they kept giving me asparagus so often, I started to not like it. So I told them stop putting asparagus in my meal. So relatively speaking, I don't like asparagus right now. But then in a big picture, I would say peas. I don't really like peas.
That's got to come from your childhood peas, right?
Yes, exactly. That's right. Frozen peas.
All right. I like it. So asparagus and peas. So you talk a lot about the game. What does it mean to you to work on your game, and why do you so passionate about it, teaching others to do it?
Well, my background's in the sports world, and in the sports world, that's what we call it. When someone is good at playing, we say he has game, and specifically in basketball, this guy has game. He can dribble, he can shoot, he can pass, he can rebound. And game just means the ability to perform the task that you are signed up for. So this applies in sports, of course, but it also applies in the business world. If you're a teacher, there's game to running a classroom or getting your point across or delivering a lecture. If you're a keynote speaker, there is game to getting on that stage and getting your point across to the audience to where they get something valuable out of it. If you're a writer, there's game to getting those words on paper and getting the thoughts out of your head and articulate it in such a way that someone else can read it and get the point that you're trying to make. The reason that I'm passionate about it is because the game is the most important thing. It's the biggest determining factor in the sports world that is the closest thing to a meritocracy, Kurt, that we have. Whereas in the business world, it's not so much a meritocracy. There's a whole lot of other things that go into it. However, having game still matters. And that's why I was able to so smoothly transition the stuff that worked in the sports world as far as the mindsets, the strategies, the systems, the applications, the accountability, and translate that over from the sports world into the business world.
Let me ask you this question. In the sports world, you see people with talent and no game, no mindset. What do you feel the balance is there? Because I know there's a lot of people with talent that just never really grasp the mindset. Is there a balance there? Or what's the most important?
No, I'm glad you asked that. I was actually just recording some material on this exact topic here today. So you read my mind. And the answer is the goal is not balance. The goal is you want to have both. And the goal is you want to have game, and game means it can encompass several things, Kurt. So this can mean just having the discipline to show up, to keep showing up even on days that you don't feel like showing up, to hold yourself accountable, to be disciplined in sticking to the program and the routine, whatever it happens to be. And you want to have that kind of mentality in a space in which you also have talent. Because if I had been super disciplined in playing hockey, I probably wouldn't be a pro athlete. We wouldn't be having this conversation. But because I applied that discipline to something in which I had some seeds of ability, basketball, it worked. And then I applied it in the business world the same way. I picked some things in which it looked like I had some natural attributes that would kind of give me a head start, so to speak, or a little bit of an unfair advantage against my competition. I applied my discipline there. And the good news about that, Kurt, is that though not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur or a podcaster, author, or a basketball player, we all have areas of our lives in which we have more natural aptitudes than others. We need to identify those places and apply the discipline, i.e. the game, and game is more than just discipline, but let's just say the discipline, in that area, that's where we give ourselves an unfair advantage to achieve outsized results.
If someone was 6'4", 350 pounds, they want to be a professional jockey and ride horses, they can have all the game in the world, but they might not have the talent and the physique to do that. If you could choose a number, mindset versus talent, is it 50-50? You said both. I was just curious, is it one heavier than the other? Or is it straight 50-50?
80-20. Mindset's 80% of the game. And I'm being generous in saying 80%. Actually, I'm being conservative rather than saying 80%. It could be up to 90, 95%. Assuming, Kurt, that the person has the baseline level of ability / talent. Then once you cut off all the people who don't have the baseline level of ability, so you use a horseback rider, a jockey, right? You said someone who's 6'4", 300 pounds, well, they don't qualify. Like no matter how hard they work, they're not going to make it. But let's just say we take a bunch of guys who are 5'4" and 150 pounds, and you got 300 guys who have that level, but only 100 of them can make it as professional jockeys. Once you get those people in the room, mindset's 90% of the game.
So you brought up discipline, and all the listeners, we've all had days where we don't feel like doing the things we know we need to do. We don't achieve our goals. We don't feel motivated. What are your keys to be disciplined?
Great question. We could have an hour-long conversation on that alone. The first thing about discipline is people need to understand where it comes from. Discipline is not something that is force-fed upon us. And many people make the mistake, Kurt, of trying to force-feed discipline on themselves. I hear from people all the time. I ask them, what's their biggest challenge? And they say, well, they'll give some form of a lack of discipline. Not showing up to the gym all the time, not paying attention to my finances, not recording episodes for my podcast, not finishing writing this book. I didn't finish launching this course, whatever it is. And then I'll say to them, once I understand their challenge, I'll say, well, what do you need to do, or what needs to happen in order for you to solve that problem? And often I get some form of, I just need to. That's a frame that tells you someone has been telling themselves the same thing forever. When they say that, I just need to. And then it's, I just need to work harder. I just need to get motivated. I just need to be more disciplined. I just need to show up to the gym, LOL, or whatever the thing is that they say. Discipline does not come from just needing to or making yourself do something, because all of us have tried that and generally it doesn't work. Discipline is a byproduct of structure. When you have the right structure in place, or system or process, you can use those terms interchangeably in this context, then all you have to do is follow the structure, and discipline pops out at the bottom of the funnel, so to speak, as a natural byproduct. As an example, if anyone ever played a team sport, the coach provides the structure. They tell you what to do, when to do it, where to do it, why to do it, and how to do it. All you do is follow it, and the discipline of doing those things automatically comes out. Another example is elementary school. When you were in the second grade and you saw a substitute teacher walk into the classroom, you and your classmates started looking at each other mischievously because you understood that day in class was going to be a zoo. Why? Because the person who represented the structure, the teacher, the main teacher, wasn't there that day, which meant there's no structure and we don't have to be disciplined today. But the very next day, those kids are right back there with their hands folded, doing what they're supposed to do. One more example is, anyone here who's ever been to McDonald's. Hopefully it was a long time ago. When you go to McDonald's, you understand that McDonald's does not make the best burgers. They don't make the best fries. We don't even know if there's any meat or potatoes in either of those products, respectively. But they are the most successful restaurant business out there. Why is this? Well, first of all, because they're not in the food business. They're in the speed business. Secondly, because they have a very, very regimented structure that anyone can work in McDonald's. Kurt, you and I can go start running a McDonald's today, and by the end of the day, we're going to look like we've been doing it forever. Not because you and I are geniuses, even though we are, but because the system is so good that it doesn't matter how smart the individual is.
So true. They take a 16-year-old and they'll never burn the French fries because there's a system in place.
That's right.
And I just take note of that. Having structure, having system, no longer I just need to. And I did laugh, Dre, at the substitute teacher. I remember those days. You're like, yeah, it's going to be a good day.
Exactly.
We have the substitute teacher. So we're going to crank up our discipline, have structure behind that. But then, of course, you talk a lot about mental toughness. Everyone has those negative thoughts. What are some things about mental toughness that we can implement? Some things that'll give us better thoughts, more mental toughness. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, let's first understand what mental toughness is. Mental toughness, the way I define it, is your willingness and ability to keep showing up and remaining confident and remaining disciplined, even though doing all the quote unquote right things hasn't quite yet produced the result that you expected. And some people call this stick-to-itiveness. Some people call it resilience, persistence. And again, in this context, we can use those terms interchangeably. How to develop mental toughness? Well, first of all, you got to be in tough situations. You can't become tough by going through everything, things only being easy for you. An example I tell people is that how many people want to read a book or listen to a speech from a person who Everything in life was set up for them to be successful from the beginning. They had wildly successful parents. Their parents set them up with a trust fund, a silver spoon in their mouths. They never had to go through anything challenging. And here they are up on the stage or presenting you their book that tells you how amazing everything has been for them. Nobody wants to hear that speech. Nobody wants to read that book. For one, nobody can relate to it because every human on the planet goes through challenges and has tough stuff happen. What allows us to listen to a person who is, as yourself, Kurt, written a book, has a podcast, stands on stages giving speeches. What makes people want to listen to people like you is the fact that you have been in challenging situations as they may be right now, and you got up out of that situation and became a success anyway, and you can tell them how they can do the same thing. That's what makes it relatable, and if people cannot relate, they are not listening. The mental toughness part means you had to go through challenging situations. Now, question may be, well, then, Dre, how does someone get into a challenging situation? Do you just wait for life to beat you up and then try to figure out how to deal with it so you can be mentally tough? Possibly that'll happen. That might happen even without you wanting it to happen. That'll happen on its own. They call that life happening. But also, you can put yourself in challenging situations voluntarily. And this is a form of stress that many people are not familiar with. It's called eustress. So we have distress. That's the kind of stress that makes you feel old, tired, and gray and look 10 years older than you actually are. Most people know about that stress. Then there's eustress. Eustress is eustress is a real word. And eustress is the kind of stress that you put yourself under voluntarily. So, for example, if you hire a coach or you get with an accountability partner or you hire a personal trainer or you go to the gym and lift weights, these are all forms of eustress. You know it's going to be stressful. You know you're going to be pushed. You know you're going to be made to do things that you otherwise wouldn't make yourself do, but you do it anyway, voluntarily, because you know that going through this stress, you project that it's actually going to make you better. So one of the best ways to build mental toughness is to put yourself in positions of eustress. That means voluntarily, specifically chosen stress that you believe is going to make you better simply because you went through the challenging situation. And again, nobody can listen to a person who hasn't been through anything challenging because everybody goes through things that are challenging.
So a combination of those where life throws challenging things at us and then eustress, putting ourselves in situations where we're stretching ourselves and becoming better.
That's right.
Perfect. Well, you mentioned that. I mean, people are going through things, life's beating them up. They're going through stressful situations. And I mean, these can make or break you, as you know, even in sports, certain games can make or break you. Let's say some listeners are going through some hard times right now. They're going through some things. And I love what Les Brown says. It talks, when you go through these experiences that make you either better or bitter, become better. We're facing these situations. It's hard. It's tough. Life's beating us up. Where do we get that persistence or discipline to get past that?
The biggest thing, Kurt, is how you frame the situation. So Napoleon Hill said this, that you can always do something about a situation, even if the only thing you can do is change the way you think about it. And framing is just about how do you choose to look at, talk about, and reenact or share a situation that you've gone through in life. Because two people can go through the exact same thing, Kurt, and have completely different stories about what happened, even though the exact same thing occurred. For example, there's a story about this guy named Dan Kennedy. You may be familiar with him, old marketing guy from back in the day. Yeah, he's still alive, but he's semi-retired. And he said one day he was giving a seminar at a hotel and his car was parked outside and he knew that he hadn't paid the loan on the car. So he knew the car was going to get repoed. And the repo guy pulled up to take his car away right in front of the window while he's doing the seminar. And he said he went home to his wife and said, "Good news, we're getting a new car." All right, that's a framing. All right, that's a way of framing the situation differently than most people would, which is like, damn, my car got taken away now. I don't have a way to get around. And framing is just about what story do you decide to tell yourself about the situation in front of you. And again, it goes right back to eustress versus distress, Kurt. So if someone looks at a situation that's distressful, they're going to tell themselves the kind of the negative frame or why this is so terrible, bad, why it's hurting me, and why I don't know how I'll recover from this. Whereas the eustress is, I'm glad this challenging situation happened because now I get to find out what I'm made of. Now I get to make this change. Now I get to make this adjustment that I've known that I needed to make for a long time. Now I don't have a choice but to do so. Now this is going to make for an even better superhero story of mine when I come back and become successful despite this setback that I'm facing right now. So framing, which is a mentality, which everyone has available to them at any time, regardless of your background, skill set, or resources, makes the biggest difference in how you end up looking at a situation.
And you got it. That framing is so critical. People go through the same things and they come out different people. Some are so bitter and negative and don't try any more than others. That's defined them. It's made them a better person. So let's switch gears a little bit. We're talking to a lot of influencers, people doing those presentations. You talk a lot about having that confidence, which you need in life and business as an athlete on the stage. How do we develop more confidence?
Great. You're setting me up with these questions here, Kurt. We didn't plan this ahead of time. So discipline creates confidence. So when you have the full structure in place and then discipline comes out as a byproduct, that discipline leads to confidence. So the good thing about confidence is that it's an internal trait that almost everybody wants more of. I've been talking to people for 20 years, whether athletes, male, female, young, old, employed professionals, entrepreneurs in every industry, and everybody wants to be more confident and feel more self-belief. The challenge is many people don't know how to go about getting it. They mistakenly do things like trying to fake it till you make it, it doesn't work. It's oxymoronic because anytime you're pretending to do something, the subconscious mind understands that you're pretending, and eventually the pretending must end. So it's kind of like Cinderella. When the clock strikes 12, you go back to the rags from the beautiful ball gown. So we don't want to fake it till we make it. We want to actually become it. And the way you become it is you can borrow the energy or the approach or the posture, internal and or external, from someone who is already in a position that you want to be in, and ask yourself, or as that version of myself, as that best version of myself, how would I carry myself? How would I walk? How would I talk? What would I do? Who would I talk to? What would I stop doing? And then you assume that posture right now, and now you have already become that person. So we all understand that you had to become a certain type of person internally before you can do certain things and before you have certain outcomes. And what many people do is the exact opposite, Kurt. They try to say, well, let me get the outcome first, then I'll do the stuff, and then I'll become the person. That never works, even though that's the formula many people are operating by. I call it an inaccurate formula, and it perfectly explains why many people come up short of getting any outcome they want in life, because they simply are using the wrong order of operations, not because they lack ability, intelligence, or know-how. They're just asking the wrong question.
I love what you said. You can't fake it. Eventually, you've got to become it, is
right.
What you said. So how do we become it? Our minds are fighting with us, right? We want to become financially independent. We want to become a professional speaker. We want to, fill in the blank, and our mind saying, you really? And it fights with you. When we want to become it, is that a function of visualization, controlling our thoughts, all the above? What are your thoughts on that?
All the above. So the subconscious mind is really what we're talking about here. So becoming it is about getting the subconscious rather than the conscious on the same page of what we're discussing here. And what people need to understand is that the subconscious mind controls 85% of our words, our thoughts, and our behaviors, not the conscious mind. So the conscious mind is processing this conversation that you all, the listeners, you are listening to right now. Your conscious mind is processing what I'm saying. The subconscious mind is going to control what you say and what you do and what decisions you make, even when, and everyone listening to this can relate to this, you've been consciously telling yourself you want to do A, B, C, yet you keep finding yourself doing D, E, F. And it's very frustrating because you're like, I keep wanting to do this, but I'm not doing it. I'm doing the exact opposite of that. That's because your conscious mind is telling you what you want to do, and the subconscious mind is telling you what you're going to do. And you need to change the subconscious programming if you want to change your outcomes in life. Because again, 85% of it is determined by what's happening in the subconscious. So how do you change the subconscious? Subconscious is altered through 3 and only 3 methods. One is repetition. That means hearing the same stuff over and over and over again. There is immersion. So think of a Tony Robbins event, for example, whether you've been to one or you've seen it on TV. And the other one is emotionalization. And the thing about emotionalization is you can go through a highly emotionally charged situation one time and it can permanently alter your mind. So people keep telling you not to text and drive. And then one day you're texting and driving anyway. You get in a car accident and the person in your passenger seat dies because you weren't paying attention. You'll probably never text and drive again in your life, even though you only went through it one time. So these are the 3 ways that you change the programming of the subconscious. So without having to go through a tragic, emotionally charged event, or maybe you don't have a ticket to a Tony Robbins event, you can just give yourself a certain frame of thinking and talking to yourself on a daily basis, known as an auto-suggestion. This is the repetition part. So that's a way that anyone can do this and program the subconscious for anything you would like from the comfort of your own home.
Dre, you know your stuff. That's awesome. So when we talk about success in general, what's the one thing we missed today? What's the one thing you really want our listeners to know about being successful and getting into the game?
Clarity, Kurt, is the main thing that I would say if I had to give one word. In Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, he lists 17 key factors that lead to success. And then he also has a list that says the 31 major causes of failure. And one of the things that I point out to people is that there are 17 ways to be successful and 31 ways to be a failure. All right, that's the first thing you should notice. And the other thing is that at the top of that list of 31 major causes of failure is indecision. People cannot make decisions. They're either slow to make decisions, don't make decisions, or they're slow to act on a decision once they have allegedly made one. And decision is not real until you take action behind it. And what does clarity have to do with all this? The more clear you are on what you want, how you want it, when, where, who, etc., the easier it is to make decisions. And what I find, Kurt, in my business, and maybe you can tell me if you experience the same thing, is that often the biggest thing people lack is not intellect, is not information, it's damn sure not information. It's usually not skill. It's often just a lack of clarity. And I talk to so many professionals. I'm talking to people who have been in business, been in their industries for 10, 20, 30 years. When I have conversations with them, just by asking the right questions, they come upon clarity within an hour that they hadn't been able to get for 15 years, simply because they never really drilled down as to what they really wanted to change, how they wanted things really to be. And once you have clarity on anything, it is so much easier to make decisions about what to do, what not to do, what steps to take, etc. So the biggest thing I would say to anyone here when it comes to success is just on that topic alone, get clear on what success actually means to you. Many people throw the word around, but don't even have an answer as to what it means for them. So I would start there.
I love it. I agree. Clarity, be focused, work on the things that you're well at instead of bouncing all over the place. So, Dre, where can our listeners find out more about you and what you do and get in game?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm on all the social media platforms. So whichever one you prefer, you can just look up my name, Dre Baldwin. I'm public everywhere, very easy to find, an active publisher. Also, as far as working with me directly, just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where our coaching programs are. If you would like to work with me directly, get access to all of our courses, all of our trainings, everything we've discussed here. And again, Kurt didn't set me up with these questions. These are just things I talk about all the time. So you want to learn more about this stuff and start applying it directly in your life, you can have it happen in the university.
Dre, thanks for sharing such powerful information. I agree. It's mindset. It's huge. It's the thing that everybody works on last. Hey, appreciate your time today. For the podcast and to get the links, go to maximizeyourinfluence.com. That's also a place you can hit the podcast archives, take your free persuasion IQ assessment, and get additional information on training. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and YouTube under Maximize Your Influence. Take something you learned today. You had so many golden nuggets. Take one thing, work on it. This is most of your success in life. And it's the thing that everybody works on last. If you're wondering what's taken so long, take a look at your self-persuasion. Take a look at your mindset. Do it, make it happen, and go out and persuade with power.